On Friday, we reported Australia's own Home Affairs Minister Peter Dutton had been diagnosed with the virus, one of Australia's 352 then reported cases. Mr Dutton is currently in self-isolation in a Queensland hospital, but I'm told now he's luckily and fortunately at home with his family. He joins me now live via Skype. Minister, thanks very much for your time.
Pleasure, Peter.
I'm told now you're at home, is that right? And how are you feeling?
Look, I feel well, and I'm happy to be back home. So I've had a mild case of coronavirus, obviously, but the staff at the hospital have been absolutely fantastic, and my family have been good enough to clear out and to go and stay at a friend's place so that I can stay at home for about the next week or so until they can do some tests. Once I'm negative, then I'm fine to go back. To be released back in the mainstream. So I'm looking forward to that.
Now, I've been told from officials I've spoken to and your own staff that you're still very much on the job in terms of keeping across all these issues and doing the job of the border minister. Some big announcements over the weekend in terms of border closures and self-isolation. Can we expect more of this or extensions of these bans?
Well, Peter, I think what the Prime Minister's shown so far is that the government has looked at as many scenarios as we can. We've planned as best we can to make sure that we can slow the spread, to make sure that we can save as many lives as possible. And so we're continuing to evolve. We're looking at world's best practice and taking the advice of the doctors and all of the experts here. And you're right, I've been on the phone and on the secure video conferencing again all day today. And so all of us are trying to do our best to make sure that we can keep people safe and to keep people healthy, and that's the priority of the government at the moment.
One of the real anomalies with this virus is, you can within a couple of days be virtually back to normal, although preserving any risk you have to everyone else by staying at home. And we see this climbing death rate, particularly in Italy, and I've got a guest coming on in just a moment from Italy. This is where it's so difficult for government to track, isn't it?
It is, and there's different experiences when you go from Italy to Japan to South Korea, having a look at the numbers in the United States, the UK, etc. So different markets, different densities and population bases, different geography, etc. So all of that is what we need to factor in when we look at the international experience and modify it to our own. Look, obviously the concern is particularly around as I say, making sure that we can slow down the spread to save lives, but particularly of people that might have a respiratory issue. I have asthma, as I've said the other day. I've had that since I was a child, so that got the doctors more interested, I suppose, if I can put it that way. And so there'll be lots of people, who've got sick grandchildren or grandparents who are elderly, might be recovering from an operation, might have an underlying medical condition that causes them concern. So there will be rightly an enormous amount of concern out in the community for all of those people, and we've got to make sure that those people in particular are taking as much precaution as humanly possible, listening to the medical advice, putting to one side what you're hearing on social media. Don't listen to the advocates or those people that hate me or hate the Prime Minister or hate the government. Listen to the facts that people are getting on the government website, the health website. Listen to what the Prime Minister and the Chief Medical Officer, the Prime Minister, the Premiers are saying, and listen to that advice and heed that advice. I think that's the most important thing at the moment. And people who are acting irresponsibly, using the coronavirus for their own advantage or carrying on in a way that's unacceptable at a supermarket, think of those people who are worrying about whether or not their sick child is going to be okay during the course of this virus, or their elderly grandparent. If that doesn't motivate them to behave sensibly and appropriately, then I'm not sure what does.
Look, there was a lot of debate last week about when you knew you were symptomatic, and then at that time, who around you might have had contact with, should they have been in isolation. There was talk about NSC, National Security Committee meetings, and Cabinet, of course, and calls by some for the Prime Minister to remove himself from the public domain. Interestingly, in the last 24 hours, 2 women who claim they flew home with you blame you for now testing positive with coronavirus. How fair is that?
Well, Peter, it's ridiculous because in the case of these 2 women, and again, you can look at examples where people are trying to use the sickness of somebody else or the coronavirus as an opportunity to push their own political cause, and I think this is one such example. I actually think it's an outrage. But as I'm advised, the people sat nowhere near me. I think it was on the flight on the way over to the United States as opposed to the flight back. So the claims are ridiculous. These 2 people have been long-standing opponents of the government, detest me because of Manus and Nauru and our border protection policies, and yet they're trying to use this to their advantage. They're involved in prisoner advocacy and all sorts of left-wing causes, and frankly, I just don't want to give them the publicity that they're seeking. But there are people like them, other people that would seek to take advantage of the situation. I just think we dismiss all of that, and my only priority is to make sure that we can get through this as a country as best we can, and we'll do that if we ignore the shenanigans and the sideshows and make sure that we can put in place the policies that will help to stop the spread and to save lives, and that's what we're all concentrating on.
All right, I'll let you get back to your sick bed, Peter Dutton. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, but I know you're working hard. We look forward to seeing you in person again soon.
Thanks, Peter. Take care.